So, today has been a interesting morning. Um, the facility that my reptile room is at had a major theft, and they stole and broke our Starlink, our multiple cameras, and it was like over $1,000 worth of damage. And at the same time, they cut the power to my reptile room, and I didn't wake up until 8. It happened at 11. And I had gone out to the reptile room, and I walked in and I immediately realized something was wrong. Not only was my king snake's tank lights off, which are on a timer, which should have had gone on, all the other tanks were on, but that's also connected to my heater, my room heater. And so when I walked in here, the majority of the room, which heats my tarantulas, my king snake's tank, until without heaters in its tank, which connected to the same thing, and also heats Mars. But all of my spiders, my tarantulas, Mars, they are all dependent on my heater currently. Mars has a little tiny heat pad, but that's also connected to the same thing as the heater. Well, when they cut that power, they cut the power to the heater, and I walked in, immediately realized the tank lights weren't on the king snake, meaning the heaters weren't on. And when I realized that, I realized when I saw my temp thermometers, it was like 20 degrees too cold in here. Not like too cold for like fatalities, but it was 20 degrees colder than I would like it. Luckily, it wasn't 20 degrees too cold for surviving, because there are no fatalities, thank God. I am so thankful that with the other tanks that were connected to a separate power source, their heat was enough to keep it around 60 degrees. But I prefer to have around 75 degrees in my room. So I was very concerned. I checked all the animals. They look all right. Don't think my yellow belly morning gecko has laid her eggs yet, so I'm not worried about incubation problems. Possibly with the one that was moved around, but like I said prior, don't think that one's going to hatch anyway. Erwin was a little bit impacted for over a week, and somehow the slight cold made him finally poop, and so he let a pretty big one, and I had to clean it, and it was rough, but I'm happy he's no longer impacted, so that was kind of a good thing out of this. Tortuga had her heat, so this could have been so much worse, like so much worse, and thankfully it wasn't. Things are alive. My spiders are good. Sadly, my crickets, which were already kind of on the verge of dying, they didn't get their chance to lay eggs, which I thought they were going to, where they died, but doesn't seem like they did. So my cricket colony has died off, and so I have to go get more. That sucks. I checked the dubia roaches and all of them. They're fine. They're not like super dependent on heat, but they definitely like it. But it could have been so much worse, and I'm so thankful it didn't. But you guys, this was a learning lesson for me that I need to check my tank. Like, I need to not only be more alert about this stuff, like I need to make sure I'm checking it at night, but with having a facility, especially a reptile educational facility that I will have in the future, this has let me learn that security is going to be everything. Keeping my eye out is going to be everything. I actually was, funnily enough, watching a Camp Kennan video called Failures, and or it was like Failures Are Inevitable, and it was all about how failures are a learning experience at Camp Kennan. This was totally one of those, and it was kind of a funny coincidence that it happened right after watching that. But I'm going to be taking my personal time out to make sure I am constantly checking on this, constantly making sure the cameras are on, constantly making sure that my reptiles' heat's on. That's so crucial for reptiles. And if the other tank heaters weren't on, this would have been seriously significant. And that's just something to think about on everyone's part. Waking up every few hours to check on your reptiles might seem obsessive, but if there ever was an issue, you would probably save them. Like, there's so much that could have gone wrong in those few hours. Sure, it was only a few hours. It wasn't like even 12 hours, but it could have been so much worse. So just food for thought. Always check on your reptiles. Always make sure you're aware of it, and always make sure not everything is connected to the same power source, because not only is that a fire risk, but in case of what happened to me, where one source of power was cut, the other one still stayed on, and were a fail-safe for my room. So, just like I said, food for thought, things to think about, things to be prepared for. It's just good to have. So, I hope this helps anybody who's had similar issues with heating, with like a heater source or something like that. And I hope people do not make the same mistake I did with having the heater be on the same one as most of my reptiles' heat. Luckily, it wasn't the most of them, but you get what I'm saying. Just like I said, food for thought. Think about it. Be prepared for things. The number one thing with reptile keeping and exotic keeping is you have to be prepared for the unexpected. And you really do have to be prepared to adapt, learn, and there are some hard things that will come that it's gonna be annoying. It's gonna suck. But in the end, you're gonna be better for it, and you're gonna have learned how to make it so that doesn't happen in the future. So just think about that. Be prepared for stuff like what happens if your reptiles are alive and you suddenly pass away. Stuff like that. What happens if there's a power outage and my generator blows up? Stuff like that. Do you have a source of non-powered heating? Do you have a way to do that? Hand warmers. Do you have a way to warm up water bottles on a fire? Stuff like that. Just there's tons of stuff that can go wrong and could lead to animal fatalities. And if you just prepare ahead of time, you will not have those fatalities. And so it can be extremely crucial for large collections like mine or much bigger, or even smaller. 4 animals can be very hard to deal with if your house catches on fire. You might have to make, if you're not prepared, you might have to make a horrible decision of who do I save first and who do I maybe lose. But if you prepare and you have emergency like boxes, bins, anything to put them in, you can most likely save all of your animals. Maybe not their tanks, but the animals themselves will most likely live. So always be prepared for the unexpected. Always make sure you have emergency plans in place, and always make sure that you have friends and family who are also involved in those emergency plans in case you ever need help. For in case like a hurricane happens or something like that, and you need to get tons of animals moved within hours, you're going to need help. There's no way you can do that on your own. So make sure you have people who are there to help you. Make sure you're prepared, and make sure you have emergency supplies. It is crucial. Arizona Blonde's doing good. My Mexican red knee is doing great. The morning geckos are doing amazing. Mars is still digesting her meal, so I don't really want to bug her, but it is important to check. So she is doing wonderful, and she's done very well for digesting her meal. I don't want to pull her out fully because she's very skittish, because she still is digesting the majority of her meal, but as you can see, she's very much not as thick as she was when she ate. So I don't really want to bug her too much, because she still is obviously pretty thick. So I'm going to go ahead and let her go back in her hide and put her down. As you can see, there's one of the not the yellow bellies, but one of the morning geckos. She's chilling up by the egg that I don't think is going to hatch anymore. And I don't see the rest, which means that they are sleeping, which is typical for this time of day for them. Like I said, all of these tanks still had their heat on, so I wasn't worried about these guys at all. They still had their heaters on, their tank lights, all of that was still on. It was mostly the king snake, Mars, and my spiders, which I have already checked on as soon as I realized that there was an issue. Obviously, that's the greatest thing you can do, is if there is an issue, get it fixed right away. But as you can see, everybody else is doing quite all right. Irwin was rather impacted for about a week. And when the power went off, it was enough to make him relieve himself of his bowel problems. The bugs have made short work of it. You saw there is about half as big as it was when I first saw it. There is currently an overpopulation of darkling beetles in there, and they just gave birth to multiple broods of mealworms, and so most of his poop and excess food gets eaten immediately. He doesn't seem to have an issue with it. At first, I was really worried that they were going to bug him, but anytime they seem to get near him, he just eats them. So it's just been good nutrients for him. And he still eats all of his calcium dusted food that I give him, so he's still getting the proper nutrients. Next week is going to be amazing. I have my first Burmese python coming next week, and I am going to be able to put it into my 13-foot custom built enclosure that I personally built. I'm super excited. It's a little tiny baby at the moment, but it will get big fast. It's about 6 to 8 feet. I'm not entirely sure until I get my hands on it. But the breeder has confirmed with me. They recently sent a picture because she had shed, and she is such a gorgeous, normal Burmese python. Sometimes the normal morphs, to me personally, as kind of like a guy who really likes those ball python designer morphs and stuff like that, I don't normally like normal morphs. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the normal morphs, but they're not normally what I want to personally own. But this is the most pretty, or the prettiest normal morph Burmese python I have ever laid eyes on, and I couldn't help but get her. She was also fairly cheap because the guy's downsizing and he needed to get rid of his Burmese collection, and she was one of the last ones that the last babies that he hadn't sold yet, and so he had lowered the price a bunch, and so I'm very excited for that. I think it's meant to be that I'm getting her. She's coming next week, and Sarpa Mitra has confirmed and let me pick out of what was left of their last bamboo rat snake clutches, and I got to pick out of their last few, and I picked, in my opinion, the prettiest bamboo rat snake that was there. And I am so excited. That is hopefully, from what he says, is hopefully going to be able to be shipped on Monday, and I will be getting it Tuesday. I'm hoping that the same thing will happen with my berm, so I can do both at once, so I can take both days off, but that might not happen, and I'm going to try to take both days off if I need to, but that's hard to do. I just took a day off this week for all my tarantulas that ended up having a bunch of issues that I didn't even end up needing to take the day off. I digress. Everybody's doing great. Next week's going to be amazing. The reptifriends facility is getting huge. I have now reached out to some macaw people because when I start my exotic animal educational program, I know there's lots of people who are scared of snakes, lizards, and our scaly friends. But not a lot of people are scared of a really sweet macaw. And I want to get a already hand-reared and trainable macaw to become a feathered ambassador here at reptifriends, so that it could be an icebreaker for kids and people who are scared of our scaly friends, and open up their mindset to the realm of my more exotic animals. Obviously, that's not going to happen right away. Macaws are an incredible responsibility and a huge investment in people's lives, and it can be absolutely life-ruining. It's essentially you're buying a child that's going to stay at the age of 3 for the rest of your life, and it will outlive you if you are in your 20s and you are buying a baby. So, I do not think people should have macaws as pets for the most part, unless you do extensive research and you have really taken, in my opinion, like what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait a year to do all of the research, budget in all of the stuff I need, and save all of the money I need for the caging and all that, and put enough money aside for unexpected vet bills, all that. And I'm going to have to wait. Personally, I would like to wait for a year after doing all of that for this year. And at the end of the year, if I'm at the end of that year, and I think to myself, I'm not sure I can do this, I am not going to do it. Because if after a year of research, you still have no idea if you really want it or not, this will not be a good bird for you, because they are such an immense responsibility, such an immense investment, and a huge problem starter in lives for a lot of people. It's incredible. So if you don't think after that long that you can do it, you probably won't want that bird after a long time. I'm always wanted a macaw. I've always wanted one. And I'm going to be still doing a year-long worth of research, budgeting, saving, all of that. And like I said, if at the end of the year, I'm not going to be able to do that, I probably won't ever. And so I personally am going to make damn sure I am, because I would love to have a feathered ambassador, but I just really want to drill the point into people's minds that macaws are such a huge responsibility that you really have to be prepared for it, and be prepared to have a 3-year-old child in your life for the rest of your life. And it's not a small investment. So just food for thought there. I just would love to have a feathered ambassador, and I'll take you guys along the journey with me. But this is not something I'm doing on a whim. I'm taking a year-long worth of research prior to doing it, and even if that's not enough, then I'm calling it, and I'll just work with somebody who has macaws. But I would love to have a macaw. I think they're awesome. I think if people take that time and they think that they are ready for them, and they have everything that is properly ready for a bird of that size and that much mental capacity that you're going to have to work with it, then yeah, a macaw might be right for you. And if you can do that and you can be prepped, then yeah, a macaw's right for you. But for most people, a lot of the animals I have are not right animals. Burmese pythons, that's an immense responsibility too. I had to build a 13-foot cage for it. So just food for thought there. Like, if you're not ready for it, you're probably never going to be ready for it. And if you think you're ready for it, make damn sure you're ready for it. So yeah, might be getting a macaw. Next week's gonna be exciting. A little bit of a startling day, but everybody's here and alive, and reptifriends is staying strong. So stick with me. I hope you like my content, and I hope if you're new here, you'll subscribe and follow for more educational content that will be only getting better from here. I have tons more animals on the way. I have tons of animals currently that I'm going to be making educational videos on. This is only the beginning, and this is going to be a journey of a lifetime, and I really hope you stick with me. So have a great day, and I hope y'all are doing great.